Good morning. Welcome to our House Committee on Transportation, the Transportation Infrastructure and Funding Subcommittee. I'm Betsy Carr. I welcome you all here, and we're going to take the roll now, please. So we have a quorum. Thank you much. We will, I don't see Senator Serval. We will go first to Senator Perry, 1131. Thank you, Senator. If you can tell us about your bill, what it does, and why we need it.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Senate Bill 1131. I refer to it as the Rural Road Abandonment Bill. As you all know, I represent the western part of Loudoun County, the northern part of Fauquier County. We have over 250 miles of unpaved rural roads. They are well loved by my constituents. They believe they are part of the rural character and nature of my district. As part of the effort to preserve this extensive network of roads that have immense cultural, historical, and environmental value, my constituents have raised a concern with the process of road abandonment. All this bill does is ask that local governments consider discontinuing instead of abandoning a road when that process comes up. Discontinuing a road just means it might not be maintained for vehicle use, but it remains a public right-of-way, so residents still have access to it. This bill does not require local government to discontinue instead of abandon. It just asks that they take it into consideration that the road could be incorporated into their trail system or green space and preserved for bikers, walkers, and equestrians. Lastly, it only applies to Planning District 8, so it doesn't impact the vast majority of you. Well, impacts some of you. I'll take that back. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Have any questions from members of the committee? Delegate Reed.
Thank you, Senator Perry. I do have a question from a VDOT perspective, and either you or maybe Joanne can answer this. Is when this road ceases to be part of the normal use, does that mean that it takes it out of VDOT's responsibility for maintenance? I mean, because it seems like that we kind of go into this gray area where it's going to be abandoned but still made available for use. I'm just curious what that means for ongoing road maintenance.
And I haven't spoken to VDOT about that. I don't know if council has the answer to the question. They haven't raised any concerns with it.
Joanne.
Good morning.
Ms. Maxwell.
Madam Chair, in response to the question, basically when a road is discontinued as opposed to abandoned, when it's abandoned, no public use, there's no maintenance responsibility, et cetera, and it's no longer used for the public. When a road is discontinued, basically the finding is that there's not sufficient public need for VDOT, in the case of VDOT road, to continue to maintain the road. So the road will still exist for public use, but VDOT would not maintain it. That's the difference.
Delegate Reed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
you, Madam Chair. So on that same topic or vein, in that same vein, what about liability issues of bridges that are failing, the side of a road washes out so it becomes unsafe? Has that come up?
Senator.
Madam Chair, Delegate Mildy, no, it hasn't come up. I think that this is done in other places in the state. I'm not sure who assumes the liability for it. VDOT, I guess, doesn't take care of it anymore, and so I'm not sure if there's a posting of signs or what happens as to the liability aspect of it. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, but. I will say we do have a number of issues with bridges and the issues related to that. And like I said, this is not mandating anything for the locality. So I think those are exactly the types of concerns that can be taken into account. It just permits horseback riding to continue to occur there, hiking, things like that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Maxwell, do you have anything to add to that?
Madam Chair, whether abandonment or discontinuance, I think the assumption would be that VDOT would no longer be responsible.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Mildy.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else down here? Anyone else? Delegate Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My apologies, Senator, but I don't have the bill in front of me, so I'm working just from the sub-summary that says the bill requires that the governing body of county in planning district date prior to the abandonment of a road not in the primary or secondary state highway system. My question is that the county doesn't have anything other than private roads or condominium type roads that aren't in the primary or secondary system, other than, of course, interstates. So I was wondering if VDOT could clarify what that is actually referring to. What roads is it that aren't in the secondary or primary that would be in a county?
Ms. Maxwell.
Madam Chair, when I look at the bill seems to be drawn to a statute that deals with primary roads and then another statute that deals with secondary roads. So with regard to the description of a road that's not in the primary or secondary, I'm not sure at this point what roads might fall under that. I guess the one entity might be in Planning District 8 would be Arlington because their roads are not in the secondary. But other than that, I can't say. I mean, the bill seems to be drawn to statutes that deal with abandonment of primary roads and abandonment of secondary roads.
Madam Chairman, thank you for that clarification. If I could follow on then, given that there are some cities within Planning District 8 that would have urban roads, how do they fall under the scheme of this bill as far as their consideration of how these might be used?
Madam Chair, I may have to phone a friend by the name of Nikhil, but nevertheless, I believe this is only drawn, or this language in this bill only pertains to counties. I don't see any reference to municipal roads.
Delegate. Anyone else? Delegate Glass, did you have something? Delegate Watts, any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Delegate Austin.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I have a question for Joanne. VDOT, I apologize. Joanne.
Madam Chair. Yes, sir.
With this bill, what happens to the right-of-way? If it's a prescriptive right-of-way for a secondary road and they abandon it, where's the right-of-way go to? Who owns the right-of-way?
Ms. Maxwell.
Madam Chair, if it's prescriptive right-of-way, presumably when a road is maintained or occupies prescriptive right-of-way, basically that right-of-way exists only for use of that right-of-way for a road. So if the right-of-way is no longer used for a road, I'm not sure that it would necessarily remain in the public domain. It may have to go back, or at least VDOT's claim to the road, I'll put it that way, would cease to exist. If it's regular right-of-way, if it's, if for instance, if a lot of secondaries or the underlying right-of-way or fee is owned by the county, so the fee would revert to the county. If it's primary, then the fee would revert to VDOT, and then VDOT, we've got various means of disposing. But that's in the ordinary, normal course of matters. I hope that answers the question, Madam Chair.
Delegate Austin.
Madam Chair, follow up. So if you're abandoning a primary road and VDOT currently has a right-of-way, so you're saying that the ownership of the right-of-way would, not the ownership, but the right-of-way would still stay with VDOT? It would still remain with VDOT?
Delegate.
Madam Chair, that's generally the rule. However, there are then means by which VDOT can then dispose of the property. For instance, it may be going to adjacent landowners, et cetera.
Yes, that's my concern primarily, is where the ownership of the right-of-way ends up with. Madam Chair, I apologize. Thank you, Madam Chair. But that's my concern, Joanne. Thank you.
All right. Other questions, concerns from the committee? Anyone to speak in favor of this bill, SB 1131? Anyone to speak in opposition to this bill? Anyone online? No, all right, thank you. All right, committee moves by motion.
Move to report.
Let's go to the board, please. Clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. Your bill reports 8-0.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Members of the committee.
Next, we have Senator McPike, SB 1317. Tell us about your bill, what it does, and why we need it.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Senate Bill 1317 comes from the Potomac-Rappahannock Transportation Commission. This legislation is about expansion of PRTC's highly successful OmniRide commuter bus service in Woodman, Virginia code that limits its operational area. Currently, under the budget language, we allow service for PRTC, but it passed in the biennial budget, so obviously it's limited to the 2-year duration. And this expansion would allow PRTC to serve a booming population growth along the I-66 and 29 corridors, Madam Chair. There's growing demand along the services, so this service would expand also to Warrington and Front Royal, essentially the adjacent counties within the PRTC service territory. So it is sort of mapping out and providing the service that's afforded in the biennial budget right now, but making it permanent in the code. The current test cases are working. Commuters are starting to pick up as that growth expands out I-66 to help serve a wider expanse of the community.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? Delegate Austin, did you?
I'm sorry.
That's all right, that's all right.
I'm good.
Anyone, any questions for the senator? Delegate Milday, did I see you? Oh, no. Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Anyone to speak in favor of this bill in the audience? Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Identify yourself.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Fatima Kamara. I work with the Virginia Conservation Network, and we support this bill. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition to this? And we have anyone online? Yes, we do. Dr. Robert Schneider, tell us about your speaking in favor. Or
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Speak.
Yes. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I'm Bob Schneider, Executive Director of PRTC OmniRide, and we thank Senator McPike for bringing this legislation. Last year, as mentioned, the General Assembly did include this budget language to authorize us to provide commuter services to neighboring localities in Warrington and Front Royal. We started that service this past December 2024 to connect riders to the commuter lots in Gainesville and then to points farther east like the Pentagon and Navy Yard. This service is in its early days, but growing in popularity, and we expect it to continue to grow as federal return to work policies are taking place. You may have seen the headlines from just yesterday about chaos and gridlock in the Navy Yard, with 10,000 cars vying for 4,500 parking spots. And this legislation helps give Virginia drivers another option to get to work and helps reduce car congestion along I-66 and along the Route 29 corridors, which are both growing rapidly. The legislation before you would codify this authority and allow the service to continue beyond the life of the biennial budget, and there is no fiscal impact. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope you vote in support of this legislation. And again, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony, Dr. Snyder. Anyone else to speak in favor of the legislation? Anyone to speak in opposition?
Move to report.
Second. All right. Clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. Your bill reports 8-0.
Thank you,
Senator.
Madam Chair, members of the committee.
You. We have SB 1007. Are you speaking for that? No, he's on his way. He's on the elevator. Okay, right. Thank you. We'll be at ease for a moment. Senator Serville, you have SB 1007, which we're waiting to hear, and please describe the bill and why we need it.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I'm late. I was actually have a Supreme Court argument at 2 p.m. today. I've been upstairs cramming for. So Senate Bill 1007 is another step in a journey of a thing I've been working on now for about 3 years. Not sure if it came through the subcommittee before, but in 2002, I carried a bill originally to allocate part of some NVTA money to bike and pedestrian projects. People didn't like that. I amended it to a bill to create a C&I tax to fund bike and ped in Northern Virginia. People didn't like that. And I turned it into a study to determine the total amount of unfunded bike and pedestrian infrastructure there was in Northern Virginia, Plan District 8. That passed the Senate, came over to the House, and it died on the floor of the House, or was sent back to committee from the floor of the House. But Chairman Marsden, who's then chairman of the Transportation Committee, sent a letter to VDOT asking them to study it, which VDOT did. And about a month ago, VDOT came out with this study saying that there's between $9 and $19 billion of unfunded bike and pedestrian infrastructure in Northern Virginia, Plan District 8. There's no funding source, These projects don't compete well under the existing NVTA or smart scale funding formulas against other types of projects.
Excuse me, can you repeat give me that figure again of how much?
9 and 19 billion. Okay. Or if you spec it out over 20 years, it double or triple that because of inflation.
Thank you.
And so my original idea was to come up with a tax on parking spots to help create a funding stream to pay for these projects. People didn't like that idea. Nobody knows how many parking spots there are in Northern Virginia, apparently. There's no good data set. So we couldn't really project what it would generate. I've been asking people in Northern Virginia for years, all these different local governments, tell me what kind of funding source you want to come up with. Nobody will come up with anything. So after talking it through with the NVTA and some others, I settled on instead converting the bill into a study, which is what this is, directing the NVTA to work with all the Northern Virginia localities to try to come up with a consensus plan to decide what kind of funding source we should use to pay for bike and ped exclusively in PD8. And while the bill's been pending, by the way, I've received some outreach from Hampton Roads that they ought to be thinking about the same thing, but nobody's actually asked to add it onto my bill, so I haven't done that. So maybe you guys can do that next year. So anyway, that's what the bill does. It directs the NVTA to get all the Northern Virginia localities together, figure this out, come back and tell us if you want to fund bike and ped, like what kind of authority do you want from us to do that? And I ran it by the NVTA. They were okay with the idea. They say that they think they're the correct sort of place to have that dialogue. They're a little concerned about the timing, the time frame of how long they have to do it. I told them it needs to get done sooner rather than later. I don't know why it takes 18 months to have this discussion. And so that's what the bill does.
All right, thank you. Questions? Delegate Reed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Serville, I'm just trying to understand, it's like the localities have the ability to be able to do zoning and proffers and have bike and pedestrian paths when developments are being done. And they also receive, I think, like 30% money back from NVTA goes to the localities. So, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but are you saying that they're not currently zoning and funding for bike and pedestrian paths as they are doing developments, and they're choosing to use the current NVTA money to do other projects?
A couple things. Unlike Loudoun, the parts of Northern Virginia I represent were built out in the 1940s through the 1960s. And back then when they were zoning for residential and commercial development, they didn't build any sidewalks or require a lot of sidewalks or bike paths. And so the areas of the older parts of Northern Virginia require a lot of retrofits. And the costs are pretty significant given the right-of-way. Even just condemning small strips of land is not cheap anymore up in Northern Virginia. And so proffers and zoning doesn't really help a big part of Nova that's already been built out. the part you represent is still growing and whatever, and they can deal with that through proffers and all that stuff. The 30% money you talked about, the counties typically reserve largely for roads or transit, mainly roads. They do reserve a small piece of it for things like sidewalk retrofits and stuff, but at least in Fairfax, the list of projects that they have to fund is like decades long, and they never get to most of it. And for larger trail systems, there's no money for that at all. And there's a small federal funding, there's a small funding stream at the state level. I can't remember what it's called right now off the top of my head, but it's money for the entire state. It's like $30 million a year for the entire Commonwealth, right? And that's not anything close to what we need to pay for this kind of stuff. And so that's why, in addition to that, again, as I said, the only other solutions are smart scale or the NVTA. And when you start putting, $1 million to $10 million bike lanes or sidewalk projects or traffic calming things in a formula like that, it just doesn't score well against the other kinds of projects that are there. So they don't get funded. So that's why I started this process to try and get a separate funding stream. So I think that's the only way these things are going to get really funded. So,
Delegate Reed?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Delegate Watts?
Yes, actually, with the answer to Delegate Reed's, Delegate Sorrell has really underscored a great deal of what I would have addressed, that Northern Virginia Transportation Authority money has only essentially been in place for 10 years, and there's a tremendous backlog before that. So that it, though, is very much restricted to deal with congestion mitigation. It is supposed to deal with congestion mitigation, not clean air, not other issues that might come up with this kind of trail system. So I'm trying to find a question in all this, but I am commending the patron for a study that actually looks at other funding streams, because the funding stream that I just described is really needed for congestion. The patron has already talked about, at least in Fairfax, where we don't have proffers for many of our needs that we have to backfill on. That 30% can only go just far, and I know the list is very, very long. So I commend the patron in looking for another appropriate source of revenue that is collectible and that is tied to this kind of alternate transportation sources that right now Northern Virginia is basically only the vehicle or the public transit, and there's not much in between. So I still haven't found a question in all this except to say, is that what you are intending?
yeah, and I'll just also point out that as we build out Northern Virginia Transit more extensively, whether it's the Silver Line that just got built or the bus rapid transit, NVTA has a big plan for a big bus rapid transit network, including a $1 billion bus rapid transit in my district, which is currently in the process of condemnation. You can have all this transit, but people got to be able to get to the stations. And if you can't walk to the stations safely or bike to the stations safely or whatever, the transit isn't going to get used either. And so, we are increasingly going to need to be able to build out this sort of pedestrian stuff as Northern Virginia densifies and as we rely more on transit, people got to be able to get there. So that's also driving a lot of this. I mean, we're going to build this $1 billion project in my district, and people are going to get hit by cars trying to walk to it. So it's...
Delegate Watts, anything else? Delegate Milday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions for the patron.
It doesn't include Stafford.
And a comment. Also, moving utilities is extremely expensive when you're trying to come back and retrofit. But I think that Delegate Reed's question, Madam Chair, can NVTA do this? They're just not doing it. I want to make sure I understood the answer is yes. And I can't remember the categories of all the categories of smart scale. I know you have safety, and you have congestion. Remind me where you put the pedestrian, where they score the best. Is there a carve out in smart scale for pedestrian?
Senator.
I don't think so. I don't think there is. And the recent changes that they made to smart scale about a year ago I think, sort of, if anything, deprioritized non-vehicle projects. They altered some of the scoring methodologies, but I think smart scale is just one big pot. There's a separate stream that the CTB has to spend for bike and ped. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. It's some federal thing that came in with the IRA. There was some additional money there, but I want to say it's only like $30 million a year, $40 million a year for the entire Commonwealth, which is peanuts when you're talking about Northern Virginia needing $9 billion in 10 years. So there is a separate stream, separate from smart scale. That might be what you're thinking about.
Delegate Milday?
Madam Chair, there's several categories in smart scale, and I just can't remember that off the top of my head. I don't remember them. I used to know them all, and they do change. I just wanted to know which one you use when you're looking for pedestrian. Madam Chair, I think as long as the NVTA, Madam Chair,
yes,
the question is they can do this. They just aren't inspired yet to do it. No. Yeah.
Senator Delegate Watts.
I would tend to jump ahead and say no. In the tightness of the formation of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, they were very tightly focused on congestion mitigation for the use of the 70% regional money, so that this would not fall under their purview, hence the need for a legislatively directed study that has them do it, gives them the authority to do it.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think for bike and ped, they probably need to have a separate scoring matrix, just because it's the kinds of factors you look at to rate bike or ped projects relative to roads or transit. It's just a whole different set of criteria that they'd have to come up with. They probably need some kind of statutory amendment next year if we were to come up with a funding source to give them further guidance about how to score projects, because I think their current system, their current scoring matrix is largely statutory, I think.
All right. Delegate Glass.
Gratitude, Madam Chair. We may have found an opportunity. I think this and I want to thank the patron, because I think there's a healthy level of disrespect for the need for folks that ride bikes and pedestrian traffic just across the board. And I find it very interesting how I think, Madam Chair, come back to our spaces and places into these regional opportunities to fund these things, and they look at us and say, figure it out. And when we come with solutions, they say, no, not that one. It's going to cost some way, shape, or form, so gratitude for the patron for that. To Delegate Milday's point, Madam Chair, safety, congestion, accessibility, environmental and economic development, land use coordination, right? These are the spaces and places where they're doing that. But I just remember the other week we had a conversation in here about speed cameras. And I'm touching this gentleman right here as we whisper back and forth about safety and the funding that goes to that. And I do believe the intent of the funding for speed cameras, at least from this body, was to go back into the things that help people travel by foot, by bike, safely. And I think this is an opportunity. Should we expand the ability to do those speed cameras and give local governments the opportunity to do the right thing, that we invest in this very thing, because we don't want to increase taxes, but we know it needs to happen. So I just want to raise an exclamation point to say, those millions of dollars that we're getting from speed cameras, here is one great opportunity to try and fund something that'll make a difference in the lives of Virginians.
Thank you, Delegate Glass. We have Delegate Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have more of a comment to the patron than a question. Senator, I understand what you're trying to do here, and I very much appreciate it, because we do have to look at alternative methods of transportation. You put a 10-year delayed enactment on this, we may have a little bit of money, but when the time comes necessary. But my fears are right now with VDOT and the funding for VDOT, we're way underfunded. We'd never have enough money to accomplish what we want, and surface transportation needs are so great. The other aspect is a lot of these P3 projects that we've done, are going to reach their end of life at some point, and we're going to pick up the maintenance of the highways there. We have a real problem that we're facing with funding for transportation. This is a solution. I wasn't particularly fond of rail, but with Interstate 81, rail has been the salvation. We're moving a lot of people by rail that would be on the highways traveling in surface transportation and passenger vehicles. This is certainly something that we need to entertain. I'm just not certain that the money's there, enough money to make a substantial difference at this point in time. Having said that, the costs are going up every day. So, Senator, I understand what you're trying to do. I'm struggling with it. But, I commend you for trying to find a solution and a path forward to get people to metro stations and other places without driving in a passenger vehicle. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks. And this doesn't, the reason this is purely regional, because I knew that, statewide, the needs are very different. Certain parts of the state don't need bike and ped retrofits or anything like parts of Nova do. So that's why I focused this exclusively on just Northern Virginia and not, although again, I had some interest at Hampton Roads, and feel free to do a Hampton Roads bill next year.
All right.
Madam Chair, I would like to say, Senator, I understand that, but every dollar we spend somewhere, we've got to spend those dollars where we get the best return on them. And I don't know the situation up there of the MVTC, what they feel is best served. If they have some reservations now, I probably understand that. I mean, a lot of roads up there are congested and need improvements. If we're doing this, are you planning to do this along with an improvement of a road, or are you planning to do this on existing roads?
Senator?
The study that was done was for projects, I think it was, my recollection is the study was done for projects independent of road widenings. Okay. There's only so many road widenings you can still do in Internova and PD8. I mean, it's so expensive given the cost of land. It often doesn't score well. That's why a lot of money's been going to transit instead of versus the road stuff. There's still parts of Loudoun and Prince William that need some widening, but trying to widen in Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria is virtually impossible now. I mean,
that's right. So, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator.
Delegate Glass? Thank you. Delegate Reed?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator, I just want to kind of echo one of the things here that Delegate Glass was saying, is that I think that there's an opportunity to kind of dovetail some of these things that we've been working on with some of the speed safety cameras. And again, I just want to emphasize, because I know that we've all heard us talk about it, but it's like any expansion of the speed safety cameras has to come with the appropriate guardrails, and then be able to have the money go towards safety measures like what you're talking about, as opposed to it being a for-profit type of incentive for locality. So I think that it's really very interesting, and I think there's an opportunity for some of these things that we've been working on to be able to dovetail together to be able to achieve the same goals. So that's the only comment I have, Madam Chair, and if it's the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion.
All right, anyone else?
Well, unless you want to take testimony, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll hold that, please. Anyone to speak in favor of this bill? You can please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Subcommittee Trip Pollard with the Southern Environmental Law Center. Been a lot of excellent discussion about issues I've been working on with many of you for decades about state funding needs, but this is about Northern Virginia, and as Delegate Watts and as the Senator pointed out very well, there's particular needs in Northern Virginia and there are particular limitations on that regional money, and that's why I think you need a vehicle like this. And so this is just a study to look at it, and I think it's well worth advancing. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Noel Dominguez with Fairfax County, and I just wanted to say our board also supports the bill. We have a lot of bicycle and pedestrian needs in our locality. I think we're doing a lot to try to address those efforts, but the help provided by the Senator would also go a long way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone online? No? All right. All right, committee moves by motion.
Move to report.
All right. Clerk will please open the roll. clerk will close the roll. Your bill passes 6-2, Senator. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Any other business to come before the committee? The committee shall rise.